This podcast brought to you by Hyundai. Get a brilliant drive-away price, including automatic. Which car company offers fantastic automatic value? We do. Hyundai.
Story that captured my attention this morning. The federal government's been asked to fast-track funding for a life-saving drug. This is after a Melbourne family made the very emotional plea about this drug. It is called Eculizumab, which I've probably pronounced completely wrongly. The plea is to put it onto the life-saving drugs program. I heard the mother of a victim of this disease, AHUS, today saying that the drug had been by the pharmaceutical company on their emergency list and families had been getting it, but that has now ended. And so the Democrat Senator, Victorian Senator John Madigan, has actually called on the Prime Minister personally to try and get this sorted out. He's been good enough to join us on the line. Good to talk to you again, Senator.
Good evening. Good evening, Steve. How are you?
I'm well. What is this? How deadly is this disease? And without this drug, what does it do to the young fella in particular that we're talking about, Ashley Gray?
Look, Steve, it can ultimately cause strokes, heart attack, kidney and organ failure, and ultimately death. Now, this drug, this disease affects about 150 Australians that we know of. And the fact is they're procrastinating over whether to put this on the life-saving drug program, as you mentioned earlier. Now, a couple of weeks, about 2-3 weeks ago, I visited two families. One of them was Ashley Gray's family, and at Catherine Marshall. Now, Ashley, as you know, is 5, and Catherine's 22, and they both suffer from this terrible disease. Now, to put this into perspective, Steve, what this drug costs about $240,000 thereabouts a year to treat a person.
$240,000?
$1,000, okay, as it stands. But let's get this into perspective. We've got 226 federal MPs, 150 members of the House of Representatives and 76 senators. 18 months ago, they gave themselves, for a backbencher, approximately a $50,000 pay rise, okay? So if you multiply out 226 by 50,000, that's about $11.3 million. You add the 15% super to it, that's another 1.695, which comes to $12,995,000. So if you divide that by $240,000, 54 sufferers of this disease could be treated.
So you're saying the MPs should give back their pay rise?
Well, Steve, I'm just saying I gave mine to buying Australian-made equipment.
I know you did.
Helping schools and that, for our farming and our engineering. And I'm saying your heart goes out to people when you see that these lives are being nipped in the bud. And when you hear their parents saying how they're toying with selling their homes to look after their kids, it's heartbreaking. And then, we've got to look at it then when the parents sell their home, what effect it has on the children's brothers and sisters, and then the parents not working because they're caring for the child and they're not paying tax, and then all the trips in and out of hospital for dialysis and treatment. It's ridiculous. And this drug, mind you, is actually covered under some schemes and treatment for other diseases, but not for this disease.
And it's subsidised, isn't it, Senator, in other countries?
That's right. It's funded in 40 other countries. And look, just another way to put it into perspective, Steve, is that it would cost each taxpayer about $2.22 a year to subsidise.
What response have you had from the PM, any?
Look, nothing as yet. I hope that Mr Abbott and the government hear these people's plea for assistance. I think that, we need to take into account, what value we put on life. For me, you can't put a value on a life. It's, there is no value that reflects a life.
How do we make a judgment, though, Senator, on which of these types of drugs to treat, which life-threatening illness we actually do subsidise? I mean, do we do everything?
Well, look, Steve, I challenge any person to go there, have a talk to somebody whose life is under threat. And this disease does not discriminate either between the young or the old. And, if people want to get a good feel for this AHUS, there's the APSGA website. It's the Patient Support Group for AHUS.
Yes, so it's a small A, capital H, capital U, capital S.
Yep, and it's they've got a website, APSGA, and that's the Patient Support Group Australia for AHUS. And that shows that there's stories there of people, adults, young people, middle-aged people and children. And I ask people, go on there and have a look for yourself.
The Federal Health Department has said that the life-saving drugs program was demand-driven. Well, if it's demand-driven and there are the number of people you say, Senator, who need this drug because of that disease, you would think that'd be enough demand, wouldn't you?
Well, you certainly would, and I think that we're talking about people, Steve. We're not talking about numbers in a ledger. We're not talking about statistics. We're talking about the people who are suffering from the disease immediately, their immediate family, their friends, their extended family. This shocking disease has an enormous impact upon a lot of people other than those 150-odd sufferers that are diagnosed with this terrible disease.
Well, you're doing a great job. Congratulations too. Just before I let you go, what do you make of the comments from the Treasurer, Joe Hockey, today about rural support for drought-affected farmers?
Well, I don't know where Mr. Hockey's living. I mean, in the real world, our farmers go out day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And, they battle against the odds and the weather and the climate the whole time. I often think, like a lot of my mates are farmers, and they're the greatest punters there are. And, we need to support our farmers. We need to have good, clean, green, reliable food. We need a vibrant food processing industry, and not to forget our manufacturers either. And, there is no level playing field. Maybe in a perfect world there would be, but in the real world, Steve, there is not.
Senator, a pleasure to catch up as usual. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Steve.
Senator John Madigan there from the Democratic Labor Party.
This podcast brought to you by Hyundai. Get a brilliant drive-away price, including automatic. Which car company offers fantastic automatic value? We do. Hyundai.